Hello everyone, this is Zach with one more Mosh Pit Productions. If you listen to the podcast or you've been around me, you'd probably know that I'm a scholar of professional wrestling. It's one of the worst things to be an expert about, but I strive to be mediocre in video as well as audio, so I present to you Dank Side of the ring. So sit back while I struggle to edit video and I'll tell you how I got into wrestling and why we're such a wrestling-centric podcast. I'm basically a toddler and my memories just come online, and my dad tells me the whole thing is a work. I guess he found it during a Coors Light fueled channel flipping session and said, "Look at that fake wrestling shit, boy." Some might argue it stunted my experience being body slammed by unlearnable knowledge, but I was an incredulous kid and I would have figured it out soon enough. Weird kids are wont to get into weird things, so I got into the history and esoterics of pro wrestling. My dad grew up in Texas and world-class championship wrestling territory, so he made references to the Von Erichs and the Funks, two legendary wrestling families with fascinating histories. But also he'd mention this jabroni named Gorgeous George Jr., not the original guy who wrestled in wrestling's first golden age in the 40s and 50s, and not to be confused with the valet that Randy Savage had at the end of his WCW run. That was a whole thing, and it'll probably get its own episode someday. I only looked up Gorgeous George Jr. for the sake of this video. He didn't do much of note, but here are the highlights. And to think he wasn't even the actual son of the original Gorgeous George. This was back before we had legal precedent of how wrestling lineage was decided.
I'm your father, Dominic. I'm your papi.
An even bigger authority on wrestling is my partner in crime, one more Mosh Pit's own Vinny. Not only has he been a fan his whole life, but he's actually participated in the business as a wrestler and manager. I wish more of his career was archived, but you can still find a few things on YouTube. Also, during the time of his wrestling career, he grew his hair out to hilarious effect.
I know I'm sexy.
I've got a lot of wrestling trivia, and I'm going to dump it all right here. It can be enjoyed for the spectacle, but more fascinating tales lie outside the world of kayfabe. Do you like true crime? Wrestling is a treasure trove. Wrestling is also ripe with meme material. I don't want to hog all this trivia to myself. I want to share with friends. So check back in for some more wrestling stories on Dank Side of the Ring. That, of course, is a parody of Dark Side of the Ring, which is a pretty cool show. Just know that Vice sensationalizes things, and the people giving the accounts are sometimes burnt out and brain-damaged carnies. Until next time, this is Zach with one more Mosh Pit.